no. Don't mess your makeup up. You look beautiful. What's creating the tears? What are you so afraid of?
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book. You know what time it is. You know how many times I've recorded this first part because I keep messing it up. But listen, welcome to the show. We're talking to you guys obviously about Kirsten, and I want to break down why she was in tears on After Party. She has a perfectionist spirit in her, and we need to talk about it because it's actually preventing her from being emotionally available and emotionally present and emotionally having the ability to be vulnerable in a relationship. You saw the clip for the first video I broke down with her and Shaq and how that relationship was suffering. I want to break down it further more. Hopefully help some people as well to be able to break out of this mold if you're going through this. So if you're new to the channel, do me a massive favor. Like it, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification, the uploads. And for those of you who are returnees, we know what it is, baby. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. Stay hydrated. Let's get into this video. We're going to break down body language as well to really help you guys understand what's actually happening. So let's go a little bit back because before it even starts, I want to show you something that's going on. Now, pay attention to the pose in the screen, right? It's strong, it's powerful, it's giving. I got this. Okay. Now, the reason why I wanted to praise that is because we're going to see a stark difference. See how she's posing there like this, all poised. It's ready. And I'm not taking the mick out of her. I want you to understand because she's not putting on, but she's learned how to uh, 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 um, communicate her strength, right? So she's poised, she's ready, she's here, she's ready to go. Yes, she's more pageant queen than Jasmine is. And what I mean by that is she has developed the knack of a presentation that screams powerful, strong. I've got this. I can hold it down. Independent woman kind of energy. And they're not necessarily bad. It's not necessarily bad. It's just that there's turmoil underneath the underneath all of that imagery. Now, I wanted to bring you back to remember a situation. Going back, if you remember quite correctly, her house. Right now, she may have just moved in. She may be renting an Airbnb, maybe lying. We don't know. What we do know is how the house was set up. When we walked into the house, it was super clean, and it was bare. Right. And if you remember, when she started talking to Shaq originally, she started saying, hey, I don't know how you're going to feel about my house. She really started having fears about how he's going to see her house. Look, as much as she projects all this strength, there's a lot of weakness there. And that's actually what she's trying to hide. She's trying to hide the vulnerability. She's trying to hide the brokenness. She's trying to hide the wounds. That's my favorite words, wounds. You know what I mean? Sit on the bench and heal. Okay. Hoodie's coming out soon. So when we walk into the house, we see her house, white walls and lovely kitchen desktop and all that kind of stuff. Walk into her bedroom, it's bare. It's just her bed and laptop. But then we walk into her closet, and the closet is manic. I told you guys to pay attention because oftentimes the way our houses are kind of speaks to how our minds are at. So you can take a look at my background and go, oh, I guess I can kind of understand maybe a little bit more where Coach is coming from. You can make some deductions. When we walk into her house and we see her closet, clothes everywhere, shoes everywhere, not color coordinated or anything, it's not as neat, nowhere near as neat as the house is, because that's the way that she emotionally sets herself up. What you come into the house, you see her outer shell, you see all that she is, but when you enter into the bedroom and then you enter into the closet, the inner chambers of her mind, what you see is chaos, because all of that perfectionist and that pristine outer edge is covering that madness that's happening within, right? A madness that's happening within. Okay. Now we know that. Let's bring it to what we're going to see in front of us. Now, pay attention to what's happening here, and I'm going to break it down for you, hopefully, as well.
Too much more to know about me.
You just said this a lot.
Seeing that clip back, do you see his point?
Pause. Okay, cool. Look at this. She's still got the pose on, but watch the eyes. Watch the head. She's not even looking at Keisha right now. She's looking into the distance. Listen, I don't believe she's playing. I believe she has emotion. She has struggles to be emotionally available and struggles to be emotionally present and struggles to be emotionally open as well, right? I believe that's real. Regardless of how she feels about Shaq, she couldn't even share on the after party. She has got some problems that she has. And this is not necessarily say she's a bad person. Let's make it very clear. We're not saying she's bad. What we're saying is she's struggling. She's drowning, okay, in her own perfectionism, okay, where you want everything to be perfect and you're trying to be this role model for people all the time that you actually can't be real with yourself. You actually can't take the armor off yourself. You can't actually relax because you're always performing, you're always pageant ready, you're always trying to show somebody how good you are. It's self-esteem actual issue, and it comes from childhood oftentimes, right? Where your needs are not being allowed to be met. And the only way for it to be met is oftentimes through performative means, by being perfect and good in order for you to receive your appraisal. Now, we can talk about that in a second or two. Again, pay attention to the eyes, pay attention to the body language. Look what's going to happen. Watch the way she cries.
I mean, of course, I definitely
Okay.
see his point, but sometimes when I'm like,
Okay. Oh, baby girl.
No.
Watch the way she cries. Okay. The reason why I want you to pay attention to the way she cries, because even the cry is perfectionist. It's like you don't want to cry because, again, you don't want to seem weak, because we associate tears with being vulnerable and being weak. So in that moment, she's still holding her leg, still holding the leg, still holding the pose. Do you notice that? She's still holding the pose. Look. She's about to break down, but she's still holding the pose. Strong, right? It's difficult for her to be vulnerable because she's used to playing a role. And you're going to see why, because she's going to give us some information, some key information that I'm going to break down for you guys. So you're going to see why she still has this perfectionist spirit.
Oh, no.
Did you see? Watch the teeth. What's the mouth?
Oh, don't mess your makeup up. You look beautiful. What?
I don't know if you guys saw it. She did she can't let herself go. And that oftentimes is because you've not been emotionally fed in your childhood. You've not been emotionally taken care of. You've not been allowed to be emotional. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when she starts talking about how she has to be a role model for her brothers and sisters, I was like, there it is. She can't come out of that role because she's always been placed in a role to shine the light for your brothers and sisters. Oh, make sure you know you're the perfect child. And sometimes it's not even much that's being said to you. Sometimes you take that role because as a child, that's where you get your appraisal from. And if you see it working, you end up conditioning yourself to be that way. Sometimes it is a one or two comments where your parents say to you, you know what, be more like Kirsten. See how Kirsten is? Be more like her. And that what happens is a child, again, internalizes that and goes, okay, well, that must be what I need to do to keep on getting the appraisal. And they shift in that direction to be more perfectionist. Now, watch again. We're going to break it down.
What's creating the tears? What are you so afraid of? Just breathe.
it is.
Now, notice here what happens. She asks her, what are you afraid of? Okay. What are you afraid of? Love the question, by the way, by Keisha. Look, what are you afraid of? Takes her a little bit of time, and she's gathering herself and trying to get herself into position as to how she feels and what she's going through. Now, let's just listen a bit more, and you're going to see what's going to happen.
It's hard for me to be vulnerable and be emotional, and like it's a way to talk to me and a way to get information out of me. Like
Pause. There we go. I said in my other video, the reason why I could understand where Kirsten's coming from is because I suffered with the same thing. Not necessarily perfectionism, but it is coming from perfectionism as well. But it's not the same. I wouldn't say exactly the same. But one of the most difficult things I had was being able to speak about how I felt, because I had never had the space for it. As a firstborn, you're told to be a role model for your siblings. You are laden with responsibility. You are a third parent. You have to lead the way. You're told that you have to shine the torch and the light. And what happens is you don't get to emote. And often that comes from a parent interaction with a child where there's a lack of emotional vulnerability. I've always told you this, that my relationship with my father, not that it's bad, but he didn't have a dad. So where he may feel that he's been emotional, he's not being emotional. I'm like, you just been hard. Like, give me a little bit of space here to be emotional. You know, give me a bit of space here to feel what I feel without being punished for feeling what I feel, right? You know, you're a man. Come on, don't you have to cry about these things? That will make you more solid. You know what I'm saying? You know, you're a man. You have to cry about. Of course, listen. There's a balance we have to get, especially with men. There's a balance we have to get that we need, especially in order to progress. But the need to be able to emote wasn't there. And you're firstborn, so you become tough and you become strong. And I never really had conversations about how I felt. We had conversations about what you did, which works on one part, but it doesn't work on the other. Now, whereas with her, I believe the same things happened to her. And I don't know if she's firstborn or not. All I know is that I feel like there's been a lack of opportunity to emote. And what happens is you don't feel like you can share. I said this in my other video. Now, listen to what she's going to say. In fact, before I go there, I'm going to go backwards because there was an important part that she said that was really powerful in terms of what she said.
Be vulnerable and be emotional, and like it's a way to talk to me and a way to get information out of me. Like I'm not just
Pause. Do you hear what she said? There's a way to talk to me and there's a way to also get certain information out of me. What was her complaint to Shaq earlier on in the season? Let's tie it back in. What was her complaint earlier on in the season with Shaq? Stop talking down to me and stop basically trying to mentor me. And the reason being is because a high level of independability, I'm a person who's like very high independability and probably hyper independence. We don't like people telling us what to do because it feels like control. And also because, okay. So we don't like people talking to us in a particular way because we've been given a level of independence from so early. What are you trying to tell me how to do things when I've been a third parent? How are you trying to tell me how to govern myself when I've been governing myself for longer than you can even imagine? I've been governing myself before I should actually have been governing myself. So you talking to me like I'm a kid, or you trying to mentor me, or you trying to be a boss over me, or you talking in a condescending tone, or you trying to teach me kind of tone, don't work for me. Because I have had to govern myself for a very long time. I've been independent for a very long time. I have parented for a very long time. You can't tell me how to govern myself. Don't use that tone. When that tone comes across as shut down, and oftentimes what it is as well is that you've probably either one of your parents also too, or maybe both, spoke in that manner too. Maybe one or two of your parents also spoke in that tone where they governed you or were behaving like a boss, or a lack of emotive presence or energy with that particular way they spoke to you in a tone. And so it reminds you of that. And it's like, hey, I'm not about to open up in this space. That's why. So she's not denying that she can open up. Listen to what she's saying. And that's why I said she needs a therapist and a counselor. Otherwise, she's going to keep going through boyfriends. And unless she meets a counseling boyfriend, she's going to struggle. And I'm going to tell you the honest truth. I've had previous girlfriends, and all three of them have been a part of my counseling in some sense, because as I've learned more and more to kind of share with them, and even other female friends, sometimes I share with them, stuff that's happening. And in fact, YouTube has been one of the biggest therapy sessions for me beyond anything, because when I start reasoning, I'm like, oh, that's why I do that. That's why I do that. And a lot of times I'm therapizing through people's experiences. So when people tell me stuff, and by the grace of God, and He gives me wisdom to answer their question, I'm actually therapizing myself. I'm like, oh, that's why I do that. Oh. And it's called self-introspection. And so what I see with her is that she can open up. She wants to open up, but she's never had a safe space. And I'm not saying that for anybody to provide a safe space. What she's looking for is a counselor kind of safe space. You're going to find that hard pressed to meet that in a man. And it's hard pressed to meet that, because men often don't deal with their emotive aspects. They deal with solutions and logic. And sometimes emotion takes a back seat. So men can do that oftentimes with women, because women tend to lead with the emotive type of responses, which creates a safe space for him to share his emotions. But with men, with women going to men don't often lead with the emotional aspect. They lead with logic and solutions. So when you tell me you got a problem, my immediate response is, how do I solve this? Because in a role of between men and women, men are called to be solution orientated. Before you start screaming saying, you men need to be more emotional, focus on what I'm saying to you. Before you get to that point, listen to what I'm saying to you. Men are tasked in relationships to be solution orientated. So the emotional aspect takes a back seat. It is not that we're not emotional, but the emotional takes a back seat because well and truly our value is often based upon solutions, not being emotional. There is no reward oftentimes for men being emotional. In fact, there is an actual scary thing that happens when you men become emotional. Of course, there's within reason. We actually get punished, whether it's your parents, whether it's friends, whether it's even girlfriends, maybe even wives. Men have been punished at points in time for being emotional at certain points. Of course, I don't say men shouldn't be emotional. We should emotionally regulate ourselves, but I'm just kind of giving again an example of what's happening and why sometimes this takes a form that it does, right? Let's listen a bit more.
Just gonna sit and spill my whole life out. The only thing about me is like I work hard. Like I try to be.
Did you hear that? She said, I'm just not going to sit there and spill my life out. That is our answer we needed right there. The fact that she's not going to sit there and spill her guts out tells us everything we need to know. She does not feel safe sharing it because immediately she feels that she'll be punished for it or she'll be hurt by it, or being vulnerable in those moments are not rewarding. I'm not just going to sit there. And that comes from a place when you've been told to be strong. I'm just not going to sit here and tell my guts why. Well, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. I've got to be. And what was the next sentence? I'm hardworking, because all the positive positive affirmations came from performance. This is what happens to men, and it happens to women. All her affirmations came from performance. So you hear her denounce. I'm just gonna sit there and spill my guts out because there's no reward for it, because that's not what she's been rewarded for. Now she knows she wants to share part of herself like that, but it's been no reward for it. So why spill my guts? What value have I placed upon spilling my guts? And why does she call it spilling her guts? Why don't she just say sharing my truth or sharing my vulnerability? Instead, she said spilling my guts. Because in honestly, and the guts is where this part here, spilling your guts is you cutting it open and it's spilling. It is not seen as a positive thing. The language is also very important. Spilling my guts. Right? Rather than me sharing my truth or sharing my vulnerability or, sharing what I've gone through. I'm not just going to sit there and just share what I've gone through. But she instead had spilling my guts. There's a negative connotation with sharing her truth and her vulnerability. Right? Let's go a bit further.
Be the role model for my brothers and sisters. Like I just try to be this person that's inspiring everybody around me.
Pause. Oh, listen. Oh, it's getting good. It's getting good. Let me tell you something. Okay. Look, it's getting good. Now she starts saying here, I'm hardworking. So as soon as she said, I'm not just gonna spill my guts. She quickly goes, I'm hardworking, and I have to be a role model for my siblings around me. Okay, all right. I have to be a role model for my siblings around me. And then she says a word, and I just kind of lost it for a second. Let me just quickly get it, what the word was quickly.
I try to be the role model for my brothers and sisters. Like I just try to be this person that's inspiring everybody around me.
She says, I just try to be this person that inspires everyone else around me. If you're always feeding, who's feeding you? Now, the funny thing is, I did a video first. It's so wild. God is good. I did a video before this. If you haven't watched a part one of this, I did a video last night. I hadn't watched the after party. I had no clue about the after party. I had none. I have not watched it. I watched it just today as I'm filming this, right? So I had no clue, right? And what's really interesting about the situation is that as she's talking, she says about the fact that I inspire others. And I said to her, this comes from when people are always feeding and don't receive anything in, they become hard. And I always said this when I used to learn this, leaders are one of the most powerful people, right? Because they can influence others, but they often are the most loneliest, because being what the position that they have to be, they consistently feed, but who's feeding them? You see, Jesus is so powerful because he gives us an instruction here. At a point in time, Jesus was healing everybody, just giving everybody healing. You get healing, you get healing, you get healing, you get a healing, And then he said to himself, but I need to retreat to my private area. I need to go away. But Jesus, there's more people to heal. Hey. I need to go to the private area. Why? I need to go and restore what I've lost. I've given out so much, but I need to go and restore. I need to go and spend time with the Father and replenish myself and go out again. Your resources are limited. Your supply is limited. You've run out of supply and you're still trying to make bread and fish out of the small things that you have. And listen, by the all means, Jesus did it. But what I'm saying to you is when the bread and the fish has done, you need to go back and get some more. You need to go back and get some more and then feed again. What that means is you need to go and replenish yourself. She's in a position where she's consistently having to inspire others. Who's inspiring her? She's consistently inspiring others, but who's feeding her? She's consistently feeding others, but who's replenishing her supply? And she will enjoy that position for a while until she realizes, but there's no one there to hold my hands up. And what I mean by this is Moses in the Bible was holding his hands up, and at a point he got tired. And then Aaron and I think it's Heron, they both came and lifted his hands to him, and they held his hands up for him. There's a point in time when you get tired and you're going to need somebody to hold your hands up, right? And so long as Moses held his hands up, he'd win the war. It's a great analogy for you. So long as you hold your hands up, you're going to win the war with yourself. You're going to win the war of life. But the moment your hands drop, the war is going to be lost. And so what we're saying is you need help. You need replenishment. You need people to feed you, right? You need it. You need it to happen. Okay. So when she's so focused on inspiring others, who is feeding her? That's a key point, right?
And sometimes I don't really have anything that I want to share.
Can I be the devil's advocate right now?
No.
Do you know why she said no? Let me tell you why she said no. Not because she's arrogant, but because she knows that she doesn't want to open that door. Remember I told you about the closet? That's what she's done. She knows that when Keisha asks her a question, be devil's advocate, that she's going to try and open the door. I don't want you to open the door. I've learned to compartmentalize and box my emotions and my feelings and things that make me feel vulnerable and weak into that closet with my shoes and my clothes. I don't want you asking questions that are gonna. So though she was saying that as a joke, she meant it. Like, but she knows she can reject. She knows she can reject it because it's Keisha. You know what I mean? And remember, she is not trying to look like a bad person. She doesn't want to look like an uninspiring role model. She doesn't want to look like she's got it not together. So although she says it jokingly, she meant it, but she knows she can't reject what Keisha's going to say. Now, Keisha being Keisha, thank God, pushed on through, right? Because it was her little, oh, no, she meant it. Don't go opening that door. And watch the response of Kirsten when she presses on further.
Well, guess what? It's my show, so you don't have a choice, ma'am.
I know. Okay, I'm gonna let you.
I'm calling bullshit on you right now because this is the thing.
Woo! You see that? You see that? She broke. Look, listen. Somebody needs to go after Kirsten right away. Whoever's a family, get her in counseling and therapy quickly. She needs somebody that's gonna see her. I'm telling you right now, listen, look, I know she don't like Shaq. We're not discussing whether she likes Shaq or not. Her issue, my issue with Kirsten is that she couldn't actually share herself with Shaq. At least, even if she didn't like him. Look, Gina don't even like Clint. But she's sharing herself with Clint. She's giving some parts of herself. Not all of it, but parts. Kirsten ain't giving nothing right now. That is telling me what I need to know. That somebody needs to grab her and say, baby, we see you. This is what Keisha was going to do later on. We see you. And as soon as she said, I call cap on what you're saying, it broke her. And I'll tell you why it broke her. Because she's used to saying, I'm okay. And people going, well, she's okay. Leave her alone. Right? People like her do not have people literally hounding at their door saying, I want to listen to you. And even when they do hound, there's a certain type of way of hounding that that these type of people want. It's empathetic. It's patient. It's non-judgmental, safe zones. But again, this is not for her boyfriend because her boyfriend is not her counselor. I keep saying it. So we're not saying Shaq has to do this. What we're saying is this is what she's going through, right? You watch her. Look, she's breaking instantly. As soon as she said it, she started breaking.
What makes you are your imperfections. So you don't
look at the tears. Look at the tears in the back of the eyes. Look at the tears in the back of the eyes. Listen, she's trying to hold it together. Because that's what she's used to doing, holding it together with salad tape. And the salad tape is beginning to break. Now, if Keisha had decided to go on further, I'm sure she would have got more out of this girl. I'm sure she would have got more out of this girl, right? Did she look that way with Shaq? I mean, of course, we can see her eyes, so technically. But like I said with the Shaq situation, he actually interrupted her process. She started talking, but not necessarily talking about anything she was going to talk about. And then he said something else, and it killed off her momentum. It's like people are slow with the acceleration. Okay, people like Kirsten are slow with the acceleration, but again, I'm not saying that a boyfriend should necessarily be doing that. Let's go.
Don't have to hide them so closely with this fear of what will people think.
Yeah, and I know that I do that a lot, and I don't know why. Like, I know that I do, like, just keep things.
Now, that was the part that for me, she said, I don't know why. And there are so many people who don't know why they do what they do. The reason for her is perfectionism, right? She's having to be a role model in all circumstances and subvert her own emotional care. Her emotions and her needs come secondary to the role model role you're playing. The role of a leader you're playing comes first before your primary care for your emotional needs and self. This is why you do what you do. And you've done it for so long, it's become part of your programming. And you believe it to be how you project your strength. And because you are so prideful in your independence now, it's very difficult to undo this particular programming. That's why you do what you do, right? That's what you do. You do what you do because you're used to projecting strength, and that strength being shown in being a role model, in having it all together, in your achievements and in your goals and in your ambitions and what you have conquered in the world. But you haven't dealt with you. That's why you do what you do.
Things to myself or share things with certain people who can, like.
Ooh, I hope you didn't miss that. I hope you didn't miss that. I'm gonna go back because it's so tiny, but it's such a lot. It's so much. It's so tiny, but it's a lot. I want to go back. Listen carefully because it's what she says. It's key information. Okay, let's listen to this.
Keep things to myself or share things with certain people who can, like.
Pause. Okay, she said, you know what? She does try to share things with certain people. She's a compartmentalizer, right? She's a compartmentalizer. She does that to protect herself, right? And you know what I said to you about the counseling spirit of people? Some people have a spirit that when you speak to them, you tell them everything. I've told you this is me. When I'm out, listen, how can I have you? I had one girl crying in McDonald's on her shift. Because of the way that you just look at, you see, one of the ways to do it is also, number one, is eye contact. When you give that person a certain level of eye contact, when your body's not fidgeting, but you're still and you're relaxed, when the tone of your voice is asking to actually understand, why do you feel the way you do? When you give that person when you give that person a good amount of space of silence to be able to step forward, when you're not rushed or in a quick space to try and get that person to answer, but you're showing that you're willing to wait, you're patient, that person trusts you. That's why people feel that trust with me so quickly when they meet me. It's not because I'm necessarily doing anything special, but those little things are psychological indicators to the other person. This space is safe. So she can share things, but she never felt safe with Shaq. And not because Shaq is a bad person, but because he hasn't got the counseling spirit, and nor should he. He's a boyfriend. Do you know what I mean? Right? What's the tears now?
Look, you gonna make
She can't
my
even
big
afford herself to
pregnant
cry
self
properly.
continue. And you know I can't walk in these heels good, right? Come here.
She can't even afford herself a proper cry, and the reason being, and once again, is because that will be look like weakness. Leaders don't have time to cry. Leaders don't have time to cry. We got things to do. We got to get things done. I told you all the time. Listen, when I watch my movie, when I cry, when I let out certain things, when I watch a movie and I feel emotional, I'm empathic, but it's also part of my release. Like, yeah, that was good. Whew, y'all have me tripped up. All right. Yeah, I have me tripped up. I told you when I watched the one time I noticed is when I watched Passion of Christ. And let me tell you something, I was weeping. I'm talking, Jesus. God, you are so good. And then I said to myself, and then I started hearing a voice in my head. Why are you crying like a little bitch? Why are you crying like that? Man the frick up. Why are you crying like that? You're a grown-ass boy. Why are you crying like that? You're a grown-ass man, sorry. Right? When you start hearing that voice in your head, it will stop you from actually being vulnerable all the way. Because you're afraid of what people might say about you. You're afraid of being hurt by people's comments. You're afraid that people will reject you for saying what you're saying.
You might are enough. Just as you are. Oh.
There's Jasmine breaking down, boy. But listen, I'm gonna leave it there. I hope you guys have learned something. If this resonates with you, leave a comment down below. If somebody knows Kirsten, I need you to send this to her because I've just gave her the reason why she acting the way she acting. And she wants some if anybody wants some coaching, listen, shout me, okay? Shout me, okay? You want a little bit of coaching? Come at me, baby, okay? I got you. All right. Don't be without. Don't be without. You know what I'm saying? If you want some coaching, shout me. I'm here for you. Okay. Got some email below. All right. Much appreciation, guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. We'll see you again very, very soon for another video. I didn't know it was gonna be 30 minutes, but had to be done. Appreciate you guys.